Good, okay. All right, so we apologize to any public that may be online. We're running a little bit behind. But at 1:20, I want to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Like to begin by acknowledging that we are privileged to meet on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Squamish and St'át'imc Nation. With that, there is an agenda recommendation. That the agenda of this meeting be approved. Thank you, Cynthia. Is there a second for that? Thank you, Melissa. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. There is also minutes there, recommendation. That the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on April 17, 2024 be adopted. Thank you, Cynthia. Second for that. Thank you, Lisa. All those in favor? And carried. Are there any trustee items? It's not. We're no presentations, so that brings us to our information items. Trustee calendar and upcoming events. Danielle, do you want to?
Next, please. Thank you. So tomorrow evening, we have our district retirement function at Squamish Valley Golf Course. And I will be going, and I just want to check in to see if who will be attending. Is anyone not able to attend?
I'm making it.
I think everyone's attending.
Nice.
No,
Except
I
for
will
you.
not be attending. I'll be at the jointly convened annual meeting with Vanessa in the ministry. So that's all day and that's in the evening on Thursday. So Assistant Superintendent Lorette will be there on my behalf.
We're gonna have extra fun then, since you're not. Just kidding.
Figures.
No. Okay, excellent. So sorry for those trustees that just wandered in. Will you all be attending the district retirement function tomorrow? Yeah, okay. So I think everyone's gonna be in attendance, which is excellent. And then next Monday. With regrets from Chris. Next Monday evening is a DPAC meeting. And that's going to be held in Pemberton, likely at Pemberton Secondary School. Then next Wednesday, from 10 till noon, we are going to be having a restorative justice education session. And that's going to be here at the board office. We'll be providing lunch that day. And I just wanted to check in to see who will be attending. I'm not sure it's circle.
I apologize. I don't believe we do. I think we're following protocol and I don't believe we word circle. I don't know if we're set up for that either. Apologies, but. It's been set.
Oh, we were supposed to
Yes,
remember.
I was going to give you a reminder for that too. So for those of you that are attending, this is a reminder for you to bring an object of importance. You know, so that could be a piece of clothing or jewelry or something that's important to you. For that. Any questions?
You can send along a reminder though.
I think we did.
And so too, it goes an email.
Yeah, we just sent a reminder. That's another reminder. Okay. Okay, and then Wednesday, May 29th, so 2 weeks from now, we're going to be doing a Calhoun school visit. And I will be asking everyone just to confirm who's going to be coming, but I just wanted to share with you that last year we took the small school bus, and we won't be able to do that this year because that bus is being used at Blackwater Creek. And so the timing of it just doesn't work out. So we'll probably be taking we'll be taking a couple vehicles. And Trustee Ronan has already offered to help drive us. So thank you. Thank you for that, Melissa. Yeah. And so we're figuring out the transportation piece for that. So it might be looking a little bit different this year. And so I just wanted to confirm with everybody who will be attending that. Right, let's see it.
Yeah, go ahead. So, who's all attending? So Rachel, you're not?
Oh, but we're gonna have them.
And Lisa is not, well, you can't. Yes,
Rachel. So Lisa and Rachel, is the only trustees who.
yeah, by the looks of it.
Thank you. Yeah, so we'll send you out some more information. Once we figure things out a bit. Most people will be coming. We haven't figured out the agenda yet, so it looks like we're gonna take 2 cars from Scottish up to, 2 vehicles go up to Templeton. And then we'll transfer some people into. So we're still figuring. Okay. The light.
How many seaters is your bus, Melissa?
70 bucks. Any questions about that day at all? And then June 4th, we're gonna be having an agenda study. Board meeting, and then we're starting to look at grad events, so we have Indigenous grad, there's a June 6th, so you'll be attending that one. Pemberton Secondary, I have Melissa will be attending, that was on Saturday, June 8th. And then we're looking at board meeting on June 12th. Already, and then House Sound Secondary has two on June 13th and one on June 14th. And I have Lisa and April will be attending. And then Whistler Secondary, Saturday, June 15th, and Cynthia. And then June 19th is a Truth and Reconciliation Education session. And we're still working out the details of that. We might not be having it here, we might be doing something outside. So, just to let you guys know that it might be a bit different. And I just want to see if there's anyone that is aware if they're not able to. Anyone else? Everyone else in the them? I might have to check in with you, Lisa, about one of the activities.
Is it gonna be here in Swan?
I'm not sure. I'll let you know.
Pemberton?
Maybe.
Blackwater Creek. Let's do it at Blackwater.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, and that's it for the calendar. And then just one other little quick reminder, if you haven't already, please fill in your expense planning forms. I know we've been to some events, school learning plans, and then trustee AGM. So if you haven't already, fill in your expense plans and get them to us. Year end is approaching. Need that. I'm sure you want to be reimbursed too. That's it for me.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions or comments? Yep. And where does that bring us to? BCSTA AGM report. This is for everyone. If we can take a couple minutes to talk about the AGM and your thoughts on it. And good if I just go clockwise.
I've been to many, so I thought I'd let people who have been to not so many go first.
Okay. Okay, we'll start over here. April? We're going counterclockwise.
Okay, I just gonna start with the fact that I really appreciate the professional development learning opportunities that are presented at both Academy and the AGM. And as all of you know, I'm a professional learning junkie, and throughout my teaching career, I've had so many opportunities for professional learning, and the opportunities presented by BCSTA are among the top. And I don't know if all of you know, but I was elected as the zone PD person for this year anyway. And so I had an opportunity on the Sunday to go to my first meeting, and I did share that with What is the fellow's name that's in charge of it? I can't think of his name. He was with
Gordon.
us.
Gordon.
Gordon, yeah. I shared that with Gordon that how pleased I was with the things that are offered at those two events because they really, are first class. The second thing is the AGM itself. Of course, as you probably all know, I've been a part of many AGMs, for the BCTF. And it is interesting that the format is, like it's an AGM, so the formats are fairly similar, except that there was an awful lot of agenda items not agenda items, motions on the floor. And as Melissa pointed out a couple of times, if you want your agenda item actually spoken of and voted on, you need to get it at the front of the meeting, because as the meeting goes along, people have to catch ferries and such like that. And I think that there was conversation about maybe moving that meeting to one of the learning days and flip-flopping it so that there's more people in attendance. And I know that attendance at the AGM and the Trustee Academy is challenging for some of our trustees. But even if you could only make the Saturday, it is absolutely worth going, because that whole process of seeing how we go through making decisions and seeing the conversations on the floor and the whole format in which it is presented, if that's the only day you can go, and given at this moment, it's on the Saturday, it's definitely worth it. I'm going to pass it over to Melissa.
Yeah, AGM, it was great. I really enjoyed hearing Riaz. Yeah, he was fantastic. There was a few things that really made me stop and think with him that I appreciated. The only part that I did love was the debate. I don't think that I was ready to see that. I didn't go in having read anything, and they hadn't released their platform yet. So that was kind of interesting to see. I loved the bit about AI, because it's something that's really strong in our schools right now, that we are having conversations with parents who are concerned about it. So I really loved that there was a pretty in-depth conversation about AI and giving us examples of how it works and an idea of how we can talk to our kids about it, and to our parents who are questioning it, that it is coming, it is here, it is being used in our schools, and how we can use it so that it's appropriate and helpful. And there's going to be tricky parts of it for sure. And of course, I love seeing the students speak up on the stage. I thought they were all so lovely. The one guy was so funny, and they all spoke so beautifully. I was really proud of them. And I just really appreciate that we went. And with the AGM motions, thank you. I know I thanked both of you for being there, Chris and Danielle, but I'm not the person who can just read through something and have a full idea of what is going to be presented. I need to ask questions at the time. So I really appreciate that you're both there, that we can bounce these questions off of, because without that dialogue, I think I would be a little bit lost, because that's just how my brain works. So yeah, it was really great. Thank you.
These ladies have said quite a lot, so I reiterate what they've also said, but I'll go into one of the workshops I found the most fascinating was leading with compassion, that was held, and that social emotional data in schools, the data is saying social emotional health is getting worse, and we need to be building compassionate systems of leadership to transform with innovative methods of creating change in a way for systems to work to address the complex challenges. This workshop I love every minute of that workshop, and came out with, as I showed Cynthia, 5 pages of notes from our conference. Thanks, Arsh, for the stand-up desk shout outs over there and getting all of that organized for little old me. I thought the debates were really, really interesting. And I always find that people don't quite realize when we elect our elected officials, that the human beings that are the right-hand man or lady or humans don't usually change. So those perceptions that once you change governance everything's gonna change. You still have those stewards that are the flagship, that are steering as your human at the top might change, but your sidearms are the same. So not everything has disappeared. The debate definitely, I was texting with Celeste, I'm like, oh, this is getting heated. It's not a debate, but it was a debate. So totally debate. And one thing I did find really interesting is I have an opportunity to go to CUPE convention as well. And a lot of the motions that we presented at the BCSTA were the same as the ones from the CUPE membership. So those alliances to build full funding are at all levels, is what I also found. So it was interesting.
Thank you, Lisa. Celeste and Rachel were not there. April?
Cynthia.
April? Cynthia?
Like what everyone said, it's a phenomenal event. There's a lot of learning opportunities. I'm always pleased to be there. There's something to be gained every time you go. And I think this time, one of the things that really stood out was the first day and how there really was a lot of focus on the political ins and outs of being in a bargaining year and comments that really helped you feel like, for example, maybe there's not a lot of obvious funding coming forward right now, but perhaps the reason for that is because we're in a bargaining year and that we're just waiting on the changes that may or may not occur, that being used as a political tool, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think getting that reassurance at the BCSTA level is great, because then when I look at our own budget and if we have concerns, that we can balance that off with the information that we're getting from people who are closer to the source. So I felt like that was a really great part of the weekend. And the other thing that I really was quite pleased about was our South Coast branch and having April step up and take the position with professional learning, and have Lisa step up and take on the position as our secretary. I think it's really phenomenal. I've been sitting as the vice chair of this organization for quite some time with all of the other people at that table on the South Coast. And so sometimes it feels a little lonely for me. So I'm really pleased that we have a group of people here and a group of people physically there. I think that that's going to be a real advantage to our South Coast branch as a whole. So thank you, Lisa and April, for stepping up into those leadership positions. I'm really pleased that that happened. And then the last thing I finally want to say is just going to the advocacy portion of the meeting. Again, I'll just reiterate, there's so many motions that are put forward every year. I think they all take a lot of careful consideration. And I feel like sometimes as an organization as a whole, being that our full 60 districts, perhaps there's not necessarily the greatest decisions always being made. I feel like a lot of things are passed, and that the people from BCSTA executive then are going to the ministry people with a huge shopping list of items, and the ministry is saying, what's the low hanging fruit? And so I'm wondering if there's any way that we can do advocacy to the BCSTA executive to somehow change that process. And I don't know what that would look like. I would definitely want to. I don't know. I don't know if I have the skills, talent, knowledge, wisdom, or experience to know how to do that, but maybe there is someone who does, not saying anyone here, but it just seems it's a tricky process. And I wonder if it could be better. And then that being said, talking to people from BCSTA executive prior to the advocacy work that was being actively done, there were a few motions that they felt quite strongly should not pass, and did pass by really slim margins. And so that's tricky, that, you know, a pass is a pass, but you know, it leaves them in the position where they're going to the ministry to advocate for things that they may or may not feel are advantageous to the province as a whole, yet have been passed. So those are just some of my comments and observations. If anyone has ideas of how we can move forward with those to make a better system, that's great. Or if people think that I'm wrong, that's okay too.
Well, I'll just add, just as
Mm.
if you don't mind, unsolicited recommendations is simply that you have your own constitution as an CSTA, and each branch does have someone who sits right on the provincial committee. And so I would just suggest that those folks, you know, work with their individual branches to see is there some interest in looking at the constitution around things like, is it a majority vote? Is it 60-40? Just some pieces around percentage necessary. I mean, that's completely up to the executive or the group, of course, but certainly all of you as trustees have that ability as a collective to make the changes that you want to see. And I would suggest if there is support from other districts or other boards, I should say, around prioritizing motions at AGMs to limit the number to the point that was made. That is something, again, as elected members and representative of the branch can certainly bring that forward. So it would start with this team at a South Coast branch meeting when they say any amendments or suggestions for the AGM. I would suggest you bring it up at the next South Coast branch meeting to put it forward for next year. See if it gets some legs. Because you are the association, right?
April?
Yeah, I just think, I don't know if it's worth, I think it's worth mentioning. There was one vote brought forward that, like Cynthia suggested, was a very close. In fact, it was so close that I'm used to my own experience and I was waiting for a recall. I mean, a revote. I thought, okay, where's the revote? Why is there no revote? But there wasn't, and nobody called for it, but I found it surprising. So what happened was, and I guess we need to know this because we're going to need to decide where our board sits on this, is that they voted, there was two motions. One, they were both around student trustees, actual student trustees. One of the motions was a student trustee with voting rights, and one was a student trustee without voting rights. The one that we passed by the closest of margins was the one without the voting rights. But we have, and so the way it would play out, as far as I could see and I was listening to all the conversation around it, was that each board that has a student trustee would bring that student trustee to the academy and to the AGM. So there's a lot of implications around that because you can't just bring a student without a what do you call it? A chaperone. So there's going to be cost incurred. There's also going to be, the kinds of social events that we have. Some of them involve alcohol, some of them don't. But there's those considerations that as a board, now that has been passed by BCSTA, we are going to need to consider at some point. We in the room, as representing School District 48, we opposed that. We didn't want to see that, but I think that I don't know how it's going to play out, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's going to be a requirement, if it's going to be left up to each board, but I think at some point we need to have that conversation. So for those people that weren't at the meeting, that's what went down.
Celeste?
Just to speak to Cynthia's concern, I think that when resolutions are passed, the work that's done behind the scenes after those resolutions are passed, just because a resolution may, in the eyes of the ministry, not have merit to be brought forward, the way that work is done will be so nuanced and careful that it won't diminish our advocacy as a whole to the ministry.
That's contrary to what I heard. In the conversation I had with someone, the individual that I spoke with felt like it wasn't not a favorable situation to find ourselves in, bringing a huge list. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, maybe.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And Chris's idea about maybe perhaps, making recommendations with the 60-40 or whatever it is fine, but it's also like, it's a democratic process in terms of, deciding what resolutions are passed, and some will be of lesser quality than others. But what you're saying is there's too many.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from my perspective, I was gonna say the same thing about, that's the nature of a democracy. And if we as trustees voted, whichever way we voted, that should count. And not be said, not have it undermined by people in a leadership role. And I believe that's who you were talking to, and saying that we don't want this one to pass. There's advocacy for your point of view, and then there's also influence. If it's somebody from the board of directors saying something like that, then that's pressure that they're putting on. Like, ultimately, they decide what comes forward. So if you bring something forward with the intention of it failing, that's one thing, but then also realize that we don't want this to pass. That it's not very authentic, in my view.
I just feel like we could be more strategic as a group.
Yeah, and again, back to Chris, and that's where we starts here, and we advocate with our branch. And then we can advocate in our other roles that we have within BCSTA. We're on multiple committees. I think we're represented there. So we should have that conversation and organize, I think, accordingly. So I'm just going to wrap up with I've heard everyone else's opinion of AGM, and I agree. It was fantastic. I did not like the debate. I did not think it was the appropriate place to be happening. And it wasn't what I was expecting when I walked in there. I thoroughly enjoyed the work on the ADEI committee that I'm on. And I absolutely loved the World Cafe that we hosted, and was part of helping to facilitate that and hearing the feedback from the tables. I see just, little guiding points to try to move things along. And Chris ended up at one of my tables because we divided our group up in the room over a couple of sessions. So it was fantastic. One of the things that we noted was one of our committee members has accessibility issues and was leading some. So there was a challenge in her being able to navigate in the room because they're so tight. There was no way for her to go on the stage to speak. So she had to speak beside the stage, things like that. And it's like, okay, well, we need to lead by example if we're talking about equity. And other than that, I just enjoyed everything else you guys have already mentioned.
Yeah, it just, the other thing I thought was really good was a legal presentation around inclusion, and that was really excellent. Yeah, that was really good. Who else was there? April was there too. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's super good.
Yeah.
I had no idea. No, a lot of those points brought forward for the shop.
Okay, we also had down here, Melissa, did you want to speak to student voice at board meetings?
I do, but, I'm just going to put it out there, and it might be something that we want to have a later meeting. I find that at AGM and Academy, I love American tea. I love it when students are out there, when we go to the meeting with her. This is my view. This is why we do the work that we do. It's for the students, and there's so much talk in Farmington right now about the chair that was presented to the village of Farmington to remind them that there is a seat for the children, and every single seat in this room is for the children. And I want to hear more from the kids. I love when we have presentation. Is there a way that we could have students from each school? And I know we did a lot of talk about having a student trustee. SG22 does a really good job of, it looks like from their website, of having it all marked out what a student trustee looks like. And it's not a voting trustee. It doesn't look like it's someone that they take to AGM and Academy. It looks like it's someone who is a voice for their school. So if we can have a voice from HSS, Don Ross, Worcester Secondary, and Farmington Secondary, who they don't present at every single meeting. Maybe they take turns, maybe we only hear from them 2 or 3 times a year, but maybe they can email us and say, hey, this is what's going on in our school. This is what's really working. This is what we need from you as our board. This is what we're seeing that, it maybe needs a little bit of more attention. So maybe it's a student delegate, maybe it's a student trustee, maybe it's the head of the leadership. I don't know what this looks like, but I know that it's something that I really feel needs more presence in this room, more students. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'd love to hear from the rest of the trustees and that as well. As to what this could look like, if it's something that anyone else feels that they want to see. Also have a look at what school district 22 and 10 school trustees. Student president.
Well, personally, I'm not opposed to any idea involving the students. I do know that every month we are actively trying to get a presentation from a school, and we've been unsuccessful. And I think right up to the last minute when we were in Pemberton, there was supposed to be a presentation, and then busy students, right? And they're involved in everything and whatnot. I know we have each of the schools have youth leadership councils. And then there is the Indigenous leadership councils. And I know the Indigenous students meet periodically, they collect like throughout the district, they have representation at each of the schools. I'm not sure if the youth council meets, like if all the 4 schools talk or how that works. And then again, they're invited to the partner group. If we could get more representation, I think that would be incredible.
I think that this would be different than just asking students to present, because this would be a job.
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned 2 different pieces there. You said it would be nice to have every school present.
No, it would be nice to have a representation from each school, but not necessarily present every month. So
Okay.
if we had a student trustee at each of the high schools and the middle schools, then we could hear from them alternating. So we
Yeah.
don't have to hear from them every month, but they do represent their schools, so they are still in the leadership club or whatever this looks like, they are still speaking to their peers and getting data that we may or may not ask them for. Like maybe we have a form that's like, hey, this is as a student trustee or delegate or whatever this looks like, this is what we would like to hear from.
Okay. Lisa has a question?
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, perhaps if we're having a hard time getting the student in with us, West Van has previously done a really good job with appointing trustees to a region of schools, and we could be appointed to one of the schools and be the human that goes and maybe observes the leadership meeting or is available and pinpoint a trustee to be available for that group, and then we can report. Maybe, I don't know, just throwing ideas to stick.
Yeah, not report back. And it's a fine line as well. And Celeste, I know you're up. It's a fine line as well as to where we get involved within the schools without stepping on toes and stuff, or undermining staff or things like that. Celeste?
I was just curious about what it might look like in terms of, like, would it be to the meetings that are during school hours or later on, like the open board meeting kind of thing? And would it be entering debate? Would it be influencing a particular decision? Like if it's not a presentation, then it's participation without being able to vote, but influencing debate. Is that what you're suggesting? Because then they might fight to attend a specific meeting that has a specific agenda item. Like, how do you equitably allow representation at a table when there's a decision that affects all of the schools that might be present at a meeting on a given day? That could be a tricky piece.
And I don't want it to add too much to their course load, taking into account that grade 12, grade 11, grade 12 can be a lot. And I don't want to take them out of the school, so I was thinking if it was just a public meeting, then yes, it would be back to, we already have these schools to have the presentation, but it would be, instead of asking them in the classroom, it would be the school trustee, if it's their month, they would present. It would be, I don't think it would be a debate, it would be more of a presentation of what's happening in the school, a debrief, so
not sitting at the table debating when they're making decisions kind of thing, because that's what I had.
no, because I don't want children walking around carrying things on their shoulders they shouldn't have to. So I don't know that entering the debate, but I do feel like we should have a seat at the table.
But then if they can talk,
No, they can speak,
but
but it would be in a public meeting.
then if they have the right to speak, then they would potentially.
They would have the right to vote.
But they can say stuff, which is.
So might I suggest, I think this seems to be that we need a deeper conversation about it.
Yeah.
And what it might look like, because I see Celeste playing the devil's advocate there,
Yeah.
because if somebody asked me for my opinion and then they gave me theirs and I'm not allowed to rebut,
Yeah.
you know, I would have a problem with that. So to ask a student to come and,
And I don't think that's what I have pictured in my head.
yeah,
What I pictured in my head is a kid who has to speak at the table. But it's more. See, again, this is what I wanted to speak.
I'm not opposed.
I know.
Yeah.
And this is what I need, because I was trying to explain it to my husband last night, because he's really good at doing exactly what you're doing. And so I needed that, that's what I needed, but I didn't, I was like, I need them.
I think Paul might have something for us.
Yeah, so I would say you're absolutely on the right topic. This is something that the whole province, how critical it is, student agency. And as you know, as the district team, the district staff team would 100% agree that this is, was this working? Okay, agree that this is something we need to do. Just a couple of thoughts. We are, and Chris is going to talk about this more, but we are planning to do quite a comprehensive and robust student voice process going into next year for the strategic plan process. So that's one piece. My suggestion would be, it would probably be more authentic if we talk to students to ask them again how they felt they could most meaningfully contribute to what you're talking about. Because if we tell them, this is how we want you to contribute, we're kind of missing the mark.
Mhm.
So we need to talk to them, get their ideas, because if they're part of the solution, then they're going to be much more engaged and invested. So if you like, I think staff can we can take this away, discuss it, come back with some ideas about how we can pursue this idea, because I think we're all in agreement that student voice is critical, and we want to amplify that moving forward. Does that make sense?
I think that sounds great. And I'd also like to ask my fellow trustees, if you have ideas of what this can look like, can you please message staff and throw those ideas out there? I think collectively, this is in the right direction. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things about doing this is that it's really critical that we do this in a way that all student voices are part of this, whatever this is going to look like, and not the traditional one student, elected or chosen, or right, because that's just not representative of student voice. So we're gonna be really thoughtful about that and come back with some. I mean, we can all give it thought, but come back with some ideas to
Excellent.
consider.
you.
Celeste?
I think asking the students is really important, but also being really clear on what the boundaries are in advance. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like if you equitable access to this room for the students involved and also influence on debate, those two things, I think we need to have defined parameters around that before we ask them to ensure that they're not asking for stuff that is an impossibility or not a good idea for reasons that they might not know or understand yet.
Absolutely, you agree.
Yes, clearly defined ahead of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you get to move on. Sure. With that, then we have School Act Amendment, or personal electronic devices. Chris?
Yes, okay. And
Uh,
there's some related
Yeah.
comments about student voice on that piece. So again, I do apologize. I noticed that the other piece, so if you refresh your own electronic version, you'll see there's the support guide that came with the amendment. So I'll speak to that. So as folks from the government of PC had made an announcement about legislation coming out restricting the use, and I know they used the word cell phones at the time. Folks will see now that they are speaking to personal electronic devices, which is inclusive of cell phones, but also includes other devices, right? Like tablets, laptops, etc. I included the link to the requirements, and at the end of the day, just to keep it really simple for now, my suggestion or recommendation, what I have done is I looked at what was required. I looked at the recommendations in terms of defining some of the terms around the A through F. So that's A through F on the School Act, saying what you have to make comments about and what that might look like, to keep that at a 30,000-foot level for now, so that we're meeting the requirement of the ministry. And then to the point that was said, meaningful opportunity for schools, communities, students, etc., teachers, parents, the folks that need to do this work together, to ensure that those voices are heard, and there's thoughtfulness to how things may roll out, depending on the school, depending on the age, etc. It may be that a school committee determines, you know what, yep, we're gonna, and I'll speak to Whistler in a moment, we're gonna follow a school that decides, you know what, we're gonna try and just put our cell phones away. But it is always more effective when we're going to the people who actually have to live with, right, what we're asking them to do. Because I think an outright ban at this point in time is going to cause lots and lots of stress and whatnot. Folks may disagree, but I would like to propose that we, or I would ask the board to approve the language that was used, that references and parallels what the ministry is asking for, so that we can spend some time in the new school year figuring out what that looks like, rather than trying to get it done in 6 weeks. I think that would be super problematic to do that proper consultation, because we want to ensure we're also following those consultation pieces, such as engagement with Indigenous Education Council, which is a recommendation. We obviously haven't done that yet because we haven't met as a board. So I'm not sure if folks had a chance to look at the amendment, to look at the School Act, to look at what they're asking for, and it's statements. And so we've done that in the district policy, and then schools will have the opportunity to further flesh that out.
April?
And again, I'm open. So I knew there'd be discussions.
Okay, I don't really 100% know where to start with this. I think, I mean, I kind of agree with you. some things, sometimes when we rush things, it doesn't work out the best. We may get a lot of negative feedback. I personally am disappointed that the provincial government didn't come down a little stronger and threw it out to the school districts to sort of, be the bad guy in this situation if we decide to take the hard line. I'd wish that they had taken the hard line as a province. They should have, in my estimation. I think that if we involve students in this, especially, I guess, especially those students that are 16 years and under, I think that is not a responsible position. Children are children and we are adults, and we need to know, and we need to use also, I believe really strongly that we need to look. I've been reading an awful lot of research about the disadvantage of putting a device into the hands of somebody 16 and under, and what that's doing to their mental health, and where our responsibility as adults should be. I am the number one person who would always say, ask the children. I mean, I ask my 4-year-old, sometimes he tells me things I wish he didn't. But I think in this particular instance, the research is strongly in our background saying that we need to take a hard line on this, especially with those children 16 years and older. So let's have a look at what the research is saying. Maybe we could even we've had a lot of educational sessions. Maybe this would be the really good, timely one to have. And even for those children that are in secondary school and are 16 and over, my son is a principal of a school that has an awful lot of vulnerable children. And he was like, and they took the hard line as a staff. They've done it for 2 years now, that no cell phones in that, like they can have the cell phones, but they have to be in the backpack. They're not allowed on the playground at recess, lunch. They're only in the backpack. And he has collected data to show the improvement academically and the improvement in the social emotional well-being of the children in his building, and his evidence and his data is overwhelming. I can't state this strong enough. I think as adults and as people responsible for children, we need to take a hard line, and I'm kind of a bit nervous about waiting. That's just me. Rachel? Do we have any idea of how many students in our district don't have access to digital devices or internet at home?
No, we don't. We provide access, obviously, through our technology that we have in our schools. We had some data during COVID because we did have a system where we were ensuring that folks who did not have access to technology were provided it. I think folks will note that in terms of the equity to support learning outcomes, and I think it's maybe under accessibility as well, that is put in place to ensure that those students who don't have access at home, and we need to be mindful of that, and we certainly can't track to what happens to a family throughout the year. We know that ebbs and flows happen with people and their ability to pay bills and whatnot. So I don't think we would be looking for a ban on the access to electronic devices. I think the big question has to be cell phones. And I would just say, just in response, April, you mentioned that it was the principal of the school and staff.
And the
that had it,
staff.
right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't
a single teacher.
and it wasn't a top down from the board at
Nope.
that time. Again, the board can certainly
It was
choose
not.
to do that. So I think that's what I'm saying, is in order to provide that opportunity for schools to make a determination. Some schools are already doing, like all of our schools have codes of conduct around that. What we're noting though, of course, is it's very, very difficult to enforce unless you have a groundswell, unless you have that critical mass, and that includes parents, right? Because we know there's many parents who are going to be opposed to this and are opposed to this and want to have access to their children through the phone. And then there's lots of ways to address that, of course. So I guess my caution is just if we determine as a board today or before the end of the school year to impose a set rule, I don't know that we will get as much buy-in and support for that if we don't, again, provide the time for that consultation.
I also have heard from the other side where parents and teachers are saying, you know what, take the responsibility away from us so that we don't have to deal with the backlash. Take it away from us. Let the school as in the case of my son, let them make and he said at the beginning, he had he had pushback from parents and even some teachers. But very shortly, when they saw the results and the positive effect it was having on the students in his building, everybody backed down. But a lot of people are saying, even to me as I don't know if as a grandparent or a parent or a trustee, I'm not sure, but take the responsibility off of us, which is what I was saying about the province. Had the province come down stronger, they would have taken the responsibility off of us as a school board. Well, the people in the field are saying the same thing. Take the responsibility off me as a parent. It's very difficult for me to deny my child the use of a cell phone when everybody else has it. There's that whole, maybe we could all say, well, you're terrified of being a parent. I don't know, but it is easier if the responsibility falls to the bigger organization. And maybe we just need to be that group.
Yeah, Celeste and then Melissa.
I think when we spoke about this last, one of the questions that I had is what are the staff asking for? What do the teachers and the principals and vice principals want? I would be curious to know that. I think it's a lot to ask the principals to create school-based policy, because then suddenly you have the fear of a complaint being made about their leadership when it comes from our level. But I also totally respect what you're advocating for in terms of just giving a little bit more time to consult with those people. But I do think that, due to the addictive nature of device use, we do have a responsibility societally, which is why we're having this discussion now, to put these limitations in place and protect that brief amount of time that kids have to get an education, so that that's not robbed from them. So I hear you, Chris, and I think that if if the decision was to give it more time, that there be some kind of diary dates that we know today or, shortly, so that we know, if you need a little bit of time to consult with leadership in the schools and the teachers, totally fine. But let's get it done by a certain date, right? Go and do what you need to do, but then let's have a date by which we have something that is coming from this level, rather than farming the work out to people who might, for one reason or another, be incentivized to not be as firm as we could be if it came from this level.
Melissa?
I think that the date would be, obviously, the best date would be the beginning of the new school year, would be my opinion. I was going to say the same as Celeste. I want to know what the teachers want. Do they want it to come from the board, a full ban, so that they are not on the hook when the parents are coming at them? And I apologize to all of us in this room, because they'll say, talk to your board. And that takes a lot of backlash off of them, I believe. But also, Chris and Paul, what does this look like in the classroom to you when you envision a ban or a semi-ban or whatever? What does this look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think what we're talking about, I don't think we're differing on what we'd like to see. I think it's just the approach to do this in terms of how we're going to get the best buy-in as possible. And I go back and forth as well in terms of what the best approach is. My worry is always the pressure and the load that it puts on classroom teachers who are frontline to have to police it. If the school community is not involved and almost a covenant in signing on and saying, you know what, the majority of us, yes, we believe in this, so now we're working together. If it's just top down and you say September 1st, no cell phones in schools, yeah, there may be lots of free at first and then it settles down. That seems to be what happens. But I think we are putting an inordinate amount of pressure on our teachers to actually have to police it, and then by extension the principals. So this is the conundrum. And in terms of the timing, I mean, it's a problematic timing issue too, in terms of trying to, again, do this in a fulsome way and in a meaningful way within 6 weeks, because I'll remind folks that other folks are off in the summertime, right? And so you're actually looking at like not too much too much time. But again, if that's the will of the board, we can, we'll do our best, but there's a lot of things that we work on in the next 6 weeks. So I just want to make sure we're doing this correctly. I understand though, of course, if people know going into the school year, this is when it begins. It's easier.
And I would argue,
In some sense.
I would suggest that these conversations have been happening in buildings ever since this was announced, so it's not like we're asking our teachers to think about it from like from a zero baseline. They've all been already having these conversations, I would presume.
Yeah, well, this, even though it says March 21st, we received it like 2 weeks ago. So it hasn't been in play for a long time.
Well, that's true, but even when we were touring, we've been touring buildings with the school learning plans, and I saw signs on teachers' doors,
Certainly.
no cell phones in this classroom.
That's right.
So,
Left it.
yeah, we've left it up to every individual. So the conversations are there.
Cynthia had her hand up. Okay, so, but yes, you're right. And I think the intent is things that have been happening in certain schools, in certain classrooms. We're trying to do something. And we're directed to do this by the province to implement something, within our district for September. And we're asking for time to.
Yes, but what's actually requested is not, if you, to the letter of the law, it's actually pretty, I don't say toothless, but there's not much there, right? It's have a statement, which we have, which most schools have in the School of Conduct already, about the use of during instructional time at the discretion of the classroom teacher. So what we're talking about at this group, my understanding is actually getting much toothier, and it seems like we're talking about a restriction period, specifically on cell phones, which again, we can certainly do and support. I just want to do it in the right way. And so I'm offering the pros and cons of both.
Yeah. Cynthia?
I'm not sure if this point is important right now anymore, but what if we did, like as devil's advocate, what if we engaged with stakeholders and the information came back that, and I don't think it will, but what if it did overwhelmingly, no, we don't want any bans? And then that's contrary to science and everything we know about social emotional health and the addictive qualities of these devices. Where does that leave us? So I guess that's.
You do have that more responsibility with cigarettes, right? I think there would have been people who didn't want to ban on airplanes and public buildings with smoking. And oh my goodness, we certainly know. Sorry, I think
Which is why we go in and consult.
yes.
It doesn't mean that that's the hard one, because there could be other, like you say, other evidence that supports something contrary. So, Celeste?
For sure. And I think reviewing the literature about what we know about this is very important. I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Just oh, Lisa, and then Melissa.
So I'd like to roll us back. Chris, great job on the policy. You have given us the Coles notes of what the ministry is asking us for. I didn't find any issues with the conforming to what the ministry is requesting of us. There weren't any changes that I thought needed to be made. It looks great. But I'm wondering if there's the appetite to have that consultation and do it as of a January, like the next logical break, so that we've got the preemptive information. We go with a January 1st, like here it is. These are the things we're grappling with. We want to put a better restriction on it to protect the well-being of students. And we get the data that we need you to have to make that decision for the students. And then that gives us a bit of a minute to breathe. We've met all the requirements of the ministry. It gives us a breath, and it lets us all do that research.
Can I respond? I would really appreciate that opportunity. I think we will get far more buy-in from all our stakeholders if we take the time to do this right. And it's a beautiful opportunity. Again, and I should have said this earlier, it feeds so beautifully into planning for our district strategic plan in terms of what we believe to be important and why. And I think that the mental health and well-being for all is on there. The equity piece, we're going to be able to attach. We want to ensure there's accessibility and access, and how we ensure we provide that provision. And we don't think it's having access to Snapchat and, you know, constant texting to each other and that is conducive to the kind of district we want to be for our kids and for our staff. And I think it provides that time, because it will be work with staff as well. Because sometimes the adults in the building, right, also need to, and I'll myself included, right, if it's just in terms of model. And I think that's super important too, that that's an emergency. We have to also ensure that QP and SSTA and PVPA and BCSSA, we're also modeling that. And I've got lots of ideas I've shared before. I think that if you get the secondhand phones or third-hand phones, and you take out the SIM cards and you put the restrictions on it that are controlled by the district in terms of the education apps you need, we're gonna, you know, translation, et cetera, we're gonna take care of the accessibility equity piece. And we're really just talking about limiting the social media hits and problems with texting and all those pieces. And student voice in that as well.
Melissa, you had your hand up?
Great.
It's not really relevant anymore. It's kind of an answer, but I do want to say I appreciate all of this and this discussion, and I would like to say that we be, for lack of a better word, aggressive with this.
Does the January?
January sounds good to me.
Works.
Yeah,
Can work
like
with that.
September, my brain looks good. But I recognize that that's not a lot
reality
of
is,
time. Yeah, and that's not fair to you. So I think January is good. And then we come back after the winter break saying, you know what, this is the new rules. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Celeste?
I remember what I was going to say. So I think that we have an advantage as a district, and this is why I asked about what Whistler had been doing, because I had heard so many positive things about it. I do think that we have an advantage maybe over other districts, because we have an example of what has actually worked in one of our schools, and maybe that's transferable to some of the other school sites within this region. And I just wanted to say, you know, for the members of the public that will look at the template that we have here now and say, oh, that's not enough. We've heard today a very strong sort of voice amongst board members about narrowing this and providing boundaries and doing more, but doing it with an approach that will provide for more success, more long-term success. So it's not that nothing is going to be done more than this. It's that we're going to do it in a controlled manner that will take a few months.
Yes. I think that's captured it exactly. What do you need from us?
I guess I need a motion to approve the amendment to the district code of conduct as is. And of course, like you said, public, thank you, Celeste, for summarizing so beautifully that this is just the start of the
It's
work,
a
and
starting
that
point.
gives the staff the license and together to do this work. And I'll be looking for, you know, obviously trustee engagement, involvement in this for sure with community.
Go ahead, Celeste.
And we have a commitment from staff that any more narrow boundaries that will be put in place will be by January 1st
That's
of
the goal.
2025. Okay, that's the diary date that we're aiming for.
We can do that.
So that everyone has an idea of it's not going to take years and years. It's not going to be forever. This is what we're aiming for.
Absolutely.
April?
Yeah, I was just going to go back to the research piece. It might be good for us as trustees, and maybe, I don't know beyond that, but for us as trustees, either to have an opportunity to share the research or to have somebody guide us through that process.
So I'll just say what it asks trustees to do them. Is in the, and again, apologies to the public for not having that piece. I don't think I've refreshed. It'll be in the agenda now, and for the public as well, is actually beautiful research that the ministry's actually provided. And so we can certainly have some opportunities to speak about that. And we will need to speak about that when we do, you know, I envision a PAC meeting, DPAC, you know, Indigenous Council partnership, like we need to have these opportunities to talk and to share the research that we're informed.
Mhm.
That'd be a starting place. Wednesday session where we could already will be the meeting or have somebody guide us through that?
Yeah.
You know,
If we do this, and like Melissa's already apologized to all of us as people who are going to take the heat for it, we need to be able to be very certain and confident in what we're saying. And, you know, like we can each do a lot of personal reading. I have 5 grandchildren that are coming up in age, so it's number one topic for me to be reading about, but let's do it as a group and learn so that we can speak as one voice.
And we should.
And we
That's our job.
Yeah, we're prepared to.
We're good to do it.
Well, I'm
Great.
prepared to.
Lisa, microphone?
May I move? Is that okay?
Yeah.
You want a motion? So I would like to move that the board approves the use of personal digital devices presented by staff.
Can I clarify that just for the public and for the record? That it's the amendment to the district code of conduct referencing.
There we
The
go.
section point.
Thank you.
Okay. Arsha's got me going again, so we'll roll back. That the Board of Education approves the changes to policy 503, District Code of Conduct as discussed.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second for that? Thank you, April. All those in favor? Okay. We're good. So the next one has probably been covered off. Other than like Celeste, you indicated this morning that you, or last night you weren't prepared to speak to this.
Yeah, no, what I wanted to see was the words in the policy. I want to know what it says, and then I want to know what the problems have been and what the good things have been. That's all I'm sorry, I should have been more specific.
Okay,
But you said it as an agenda item, so I
Yeah.
think we were.
Yeah, that's all I wanted.
yeah, so
Can we see
I'm
the
gonna give you the Coles Notes version.
Okay.
Because I think it'll also come up in the conversation when moving forward of how we do this work. So in February of 2022 is when the discussion first started happening at Worcester Secondary School. It was initiated by staff and some students actually, and it was under what they called a freedom to learn was their initiative. And again, it was a beautiful example of a grassroots ground up, right? Hey, can we consider limiting the use of cell phones in class so that we can be together learning for all the reasons we've been talking about. And they did it. It wasn't without, and it isn't without challenges. There are still trickies. And they're still working through because there are, again, differing levels of ability to monitor and again, I'm gonna use the word police the situation, and there's still resistance from some students and some teachers and staff and not for some others, but it is something they're committed to doing. And in their handbook is where they differentiate. 'Cause if you read their school code of conduct, it sounds like there's no use. It is still under teacher discretion. So if they are using it for research, they're doing so. And so I think there's an opportunity absolutely to learn from what Worcester Secondary did, to hear from the kids again about how it's working, how it isn't, and how to ensure moving forward that any of their concerns again about the accessibility piece for learning, that those pieces are still in place. And I think we can, actually I'm very confident we can get there, because I think the removing of the SIM card and controlling what's available, and that means the kids are actually accessing our network, and we've done some improvements to that in terms of what kids can and can't access. I think that's really going to be a game changer for us. So that's my really brief overview, and I think there'll be more to come as we do the work. Is that helpful?
Can you email us the words? I just want to like see what the words are.
Oh, 100%.
That's what I'm, yeah,
Certainly.
There we go.
Yes.
that's what I want.
Gotcha. Yes, I will email you
Thank
the full thing from the principal.
Do the kids at Whistler Secondary right now, do they remove their SIM cards? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Okay.
just really quickly, this is a potential strategy. We're still ensuring that there's access to devices for accessibility need and for learning without all the functionality of
Like district-owned
social
cell
media. It's really to reduce,
That's
to
what it's
eliminate social media access. Thank
Yeah.
you, sorry.
No. District owned cell phones that
How many,
only have
you have an
certain
extra
apps.
cell
Yeah.
phone that you're not using?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank you.
so I was wondering that too. I'm like,
They don't have one over there.
remember my daughter replacing hers and dropping it as an adult and dropping her phone and breaking it, I was like, he's taking on that.
eSIMs are gonna be a next problem. eSIMs.
Oh, eSIMs, yeah.
Yeah, I use it a lot when I travel.
So this will be the piece moving forward, if we move to that place where folks are on board and away we go. And they're not having their cell phones with them. And they have SIMless,
Yeah.
we're in control of that, and that helps with that.
You
as
can
well.
block that ability to utilize an eSIM.
Well, because we'll just have the older phones with it,
Oh.
they don't support that,
Okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
but it's. For the future, something to consider for sure, how do we block that access, because kids might come with their own, right, and slip it in when we're not looking.
Also, remember, they're smarter than we
They
are.
are way smarter, 100%.
Right, they could take the SIM out of their phone and put it.
There'll be challenges, but really it's about building digital literacy and why we don't want to do that.
Right.
And spelling out expectations.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna send out the wording to all trustees.
Did we get a,
Secretary?
I can't recall, did we actually get a vote?
Yeah.
I know, I don't think we,
Yeah.
I voted.
did we?
Yeah.
Okay,
We
thank
voted
you,
even, yeah.
thank you.
Pass? It's pass.
Okay, great,
Yeah, because we're on the next item.
great.
Now we're on the next item.
Thank you. It's all related. in my
Okay,
head.
what's our secondary cell phone use policy? I think we're done with that. Okay, leave for public office. So I was hoping to have a response from BCSTA. And they have scheduled a meeting for May 22nd. To have a conversation with the CEO. You sent out some information as well from,
Nanaimo.
pardon me,
I think it was the Nanaimo
Nanaimo?
School District. I can't remember the number, 64.
So I don't know if we want to have further discussion on it. Our director representative from BCSTA, when I asked her, her initial instinct would be ask BCPC, which we did, and the recommendation is that that's a bargain thing, but she said she would bring it forward to the rest of the board to see what other districts are doing.
And for clarity, if I may.
Yeah.
The piece from the Nanaimo Ladysmith, that's hard to say, is a admin procedure, and it's codifying or collective agreement, the collective agreement language around leagues. So they actually put a limit on like years, and we don't do that. So just to clarify the difference between a board policy and an AP. So it's not actually a board policy. It's an admin procedure that provides the procedures to follow when someone is asking for a leave for that specific reason. And they put, time limits on it. We don't do that. So I'm just to the point about the leave provisions for union staff. And I know that's not what you're only talking about, but for union staff, we could also approve a leave for public office if we so choose. And I would actually argue against putting term limits on it, because that would have to do with organizational need for the district. If that makes any sense. Right, like if you had it was a hard to fill school psychologist position and we knew there was a dearth, we actually might not approve that leave because we have organizational need. Or if it's a position where we've got lots of folks, it could be great, and then we could have a conversation, is this for 2-year or 4-year, etc. So it provides a little more flexibility in my mind. That's my only thought.
So are you,
I think April's up first.
so are you saying, Chris, that we already have that capability, that if somebody came forward and wanted to do this, that we have the, I don't know what the word is, we have
What
the
the
latitude to
latitude-
be able to do it
That's
on
what it's
on an
covered under.
individual basis?
Yes.
Okay.
It's under personal lease, but again, I want to just respect your point earlier, which you're not just speaking about unionized folks. We don't currently have language. It's really a discretionary leave for exempt staff, so.
Okay, I'm just gonna respond to April's comment and then you're up. So we have in past, I know we had a bus driver in Pemberton who ran for the school board and was provided leave during the campaign period. And then, but wasn't successful, so I'm not sure what would have occurred after if, yeah, so.
You would have to terminate your employment if you serve on the board.
Right.
Yeah.
Just let that run quick,
Right.
slightly.
Something that-
Yeah, no, I mean, what I'm suggesting is something that like the wording in that admin procedure still allowed for the superintendent, I think's discretion to some degree. I didn't realize that it was linked to what was written in their collective agreements. But in any case, you know, it's not something that gives carte blanche ability to be able to go and do this, but it's something that exists in policy that would still allow for that operational feasibility. And it might not be a full-time leave. It might be 1 day a week out of, you know, 5, that kind of thing. There are positions where you don't need to necessarily have full-time leave for 4 years in order to take on a position. So I think that what I'm asking for is something written down to, for people's consideration, for employees' consideration, so that it opens the door just slightly more, but there's still that room for operational feasibility and for the organization to say that this isn't necessarily possible, not, you know, opening the floodgates and then suddenly we're going to be losing people left, right, and center.
Did you want to bring a motion forward?
I think we need to hear back.
Aren't you
from
gonna
these
hear back
teams.
Or you want to hear more from what's going on in the?
I would
in the-
recommend that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
So. Then. I guess that we move on unless anyone has anything else.
Is
Cynthia?
is it advantageous to create a motion, pass the motion, have discussion, and perhaps in the discussion, it might be brought up that we want to wait until we hear from ECPC?
No.
No?
There's nothing
Either
on the
do it or
table
don't
right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll wait for more information and I'll have it on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
Okay, so. This is gonna be very fast here,
I am.
so we can actually get a little break before 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I just wanted some broad strokes just to share what we've been planning for the fantastic opportunity next year to work on a strategic plan for the next 5 or so years. So we've been engaging with a number of folks trying to ensure that I think it's important if we can to have a third party help support the board with mission, vision, and values. What I'm noticing in a lot of the newer strategic plans that have come up, so I've been doing some reviews, is because of the progressive finally catching up to us, like the progressive nature of the Ministry of Education's view of the educated citizen, the focus on competencies, truth, reconciliation, right, inclusion, equity. Like this is what we're all now called to do, which I'm really thankful for. I want to ensure that we are still reaching for that, right, for a vision, for our strategic plan, because it is a plan, it's a vision, that we're reaching further, reaching further, reaching deeper. And so I really want us as an organization to be challenged, to be thinking about the future and what we want for our students. It would be really easy to just take a look at, oh, there's some beautiful new plans out there, and yeah, let's just use our language and rubber stamp it because it sounds great. We can do that work, but I'm really hoping we can agree on or find a North Star. And so we're looking to bring in a facilitator to help support that. We do have a budget put aside for that, so don't worry.
For the strategic plan.
For strategic planning, have a facilitator.
I'm trying to tie it into the school learning plan scheduling.
Oh, I really apologize. I thought we were on.
We're talking about that.
Well, that's a-
Is that in camera?
I'm looking, I'm like, he's gonna bring it around to this. He's gonna bring it around to this.
How embarrassing.
Board meeting.
Oh, gosh. Sorry. So if we.
But we have to wait.
I'm so excited.
I was waiting for him to bring it around to the school learning plan.
It is the work of the board. Anyway, no worries. Yes, this is for the public to hear. If you click on the link to the 24-25 schedule for the school learning plans,
There's no link there.
There's no link.
sorry, fine. We will be providing, we've been doing our work with our principals. They really appreciate the opportunities both in the fall and in spring to present. And so we're going to continue with that as opposed to going to the one and done in the
It's so much better for us.
Thank you. So it's
Yeah.
making sure, does the trustees concur this is
Yes.
working well for them?
Nice.
Okay, that's it.
There we go.
We'll do input later, like how we may wanna.
One
We
question.
took a long
I
road to get there. Celeste?
One question, and this is related to the schedule that we went through earlier too. It's for upcoming events. So as soon as you know dates, can we just get them as soon as possible? And then the other thing that I had meant to ask, but didn't, Danielle, when you were speaking about the board schedule, if we are going to push back the January meeting, can we just know that sooner than later so that we can, because I'm gonna start planning for that time of year pretty soon so that we can just get the date locked into our
For
calendar.
January and April were this year, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, whatever,
There were two.
whenever
January
they get
for sure.
shifted, if we can just know as soon as possible so we can plan around it, it's really helpful.
Are you talking about the board meeting? that's
Yes.
not-
Yeah.
It's not a school learning plan. I just.
Yeah, no, but I want to know those
Yes.
too, like just any dates that we have an idea about, if we can know them as soon as possible.
Including the strategic plan.
All of it. Yeah, I want it all.
Yeah, which I think we've had, I think Marcy's got in September got out all the dates
Mhm.
for the year.
Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe we'll have to have a discussion because we're gonna be looking at the same issue for next year for January.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so just tell
When she
us
said it's
now.
Fine.
I know.
Tell us now,
I know.
yeah, so that I can plan.
it's
Yeah.
January, that's the biggest. Because it's falling right after spring break,
Hmm.
like the week after.
Winter break, yeah.
I mean, sorry, winter break, yes.
I gotcha.
You can
Yep.
add that for the June board.
We get everything out.
Jan-
Perfect.
For not necessarily school learning plans, because we do planning in July or on the calendar, but for the
Sure.
board meetings, we should get that settled.
And then the
For June.
moment you know, even if we're not meeting, email us so that
Okay.
we can put it in our calendars.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions of clarification from the public?
Mhm.
Do look like it, I'll just double check in here. Nope, nothing. Nothing there.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have completed the business of this agenda and we are adjourned. Thank you very much. And that gives us